Hi there, my name is Tremolos and welcome to yet another episode of Soundpaint. In today's video, it's about the 1999 Soprano Saxophone, which is one of my favorite instruments in the brass family. The soprano is known for its highly melodic and lyrical qualities because it's sort of up there in the melodic range. And I still remember the first time I heard it. It was a track called Footprints by Herbie Hancock and with a masterful solo by the great Wayne Shorter, who's also been nominated to be the best soprano player in the world several years in a row. But the first time I think it really clicked was when I listened to Englishman in New York by Sting, which has this piercingly beautiful soprano saxophone by the great Branford Marsalis, and also one of the true great saxophone players of our generation. When you watch interviews with him, he talks a lot about the emotional intonation of the instrument. It's not just learning to play an instrument, it's really what kind of sound you evoke through the instrument. And I say that because in today's example, an instrument that just evokes emotion right off the keys. And as you can see, when I play harder on the keys, our H.A.L technology, our Hyper Acoustic Legato, will trigger different kind of legatos. So soft playing is more like, but a little more pronounced when I play harder on the keys. The player becomes a little more sort of almost agitated in the sound, but it's just so fluent to play. And if you notice as well, when I click the keys here, there's no need to play with overlapping keys, which is sort of one of the artifacts and usual suspects from current generation legato instruments. We always had to play them in these overlapping notes, and it's a lot more difficult to play that way. But in Soundpaint here, if you notice here in the module, we have something called legato time. When legato time is up, you don't have to use legato time. You can also take it all the way down here and just play on your sustain pedal here. And on top of that, you can also play it completely polyphonic. I'm gonna move the chord timer up. Chord timer means like, this is how long the engine takes to define a chord. So if you play sort of loosely chord, move the chord timer up a little bit if you want to play legato chords. There's no restrictions. You can play in counterpoint. You can play as many notes as you want. Every single note is getting its interval distribution of legatos. So it's really, really complicated what's going on. 127 rendered sustains down here using our morph shading. On top of that, all these different layers of legatos. And on top of that, it's all put together in real time. And when you play different notes, each of those intervals get spread out as well. It's millions and millions of calculations every second, but it's just awesome on the keys. Soprano Saxophone Ensemble. It almost does sound like an oboe ensemble as well, but with that little more sort of brassy kind of body. And as I mentioned as well, this thing can be played not just polyphonically, you can play as many notes as you want. Let's go a little more jazzy here, and then let me try to play in counterpoint as well, and then back to solo. You can actually weave between both chords and polyphony and into solos as well on the same program. But that's just toying around a little bit with the legatos as well. Let me show you just quickly here all the different parts. This is an ultra deep sampled library, so there's a lot of very extensive parts going into it here, including all these different arcs. We have a variety of performance-based articulations called dadas or da-da-da. Those are things that You can do it with like traditional short notes, but it's better when you play it that way. I'll show the difference between those as well. We also have a wealth of short notes, including scoops and bends and staccatissимos and traditional staccatos, sustains, sforsandos, tremolos, trills, triplets, and tuplets. Let me take you into the programs here, and let's just take them from the top here, starting with the arcs. And that's totally like the soprano ensemble again. Let me play you one of the medium arcs here. And you can hear this one is a little bit shorter, but is that just emotional tone? You know, a real human being. You can hear like the soul in the sound. That's really what it comes down to. But now that we've done that, let me just try to load a sustain here and show you how nimble it actually is when we use our morph shading down here. Again, we've built a whole new technology that completely replaces crossfading in the traditional way. The way I think about instruments is that crossfading means to mix something together, but a real instrument doesn't mix anything together. When you're playing a soprano saxophone, the tone that's emitted is in constant transformation. So when the player goes into vibrato, for example, it's not like he crossfades into vibrato. In reality, what happens is that he slowly goes in there, but it's one continuous transformation. And to underline that point, let me just load one of the sustains here. Keep in mind, this is not legato. I'm just gonna play one singular sustain, but pay close attention to me moving the mod wheel down here. And imagine all the different dynamics that the player goes through. All the way down here, you can hear like a very, very subtle rattle of the player breathing. And I'm gonna move the mod wheel just a tiny bit up here and even notice that tiny bit, how much of a timbral change you get. Move down again. To my knowledge, there's no technology that allows this tiny amount of movement on the mod wheel to create such a big timbral change. And that's because the technology is reading with utmost perfection what happens to all the different dynamics when you're playing, and they're rendered in real time as you move the mod wheel. It's really an extraordinary step forward, I think, for acoustic sampling, because I'm just so closer to the player. It's just, I don't know how to put words to it actually. It feels like water on my keys, which was always what I was looking for when we created Soundpaint. I know it probably doesn't make any sense when I say that, but it really puts me right there with the player. And while we are in legato mode, let me just demonstrate a couple of them here. First, let me try to just play between the two microphone positions we have. They're notably different. One is more vintage, the other one is more modern. And room mic. Close mic. And room mic. And it is extraordinarily nimble here. As you can see, I can do run building too. And this one makes me giggle every time. Forgive me for what I'm about to do. I'm so sorry. Let me just try to do the same thing, an octave up here. I'll play a little bit harder on the keys so we really get like a pronounced, exaggerated kind of legato. That one. I mean, what's not to love about trichords? And here's a couple of performance-based articulations. Again, you can do this with short notes, but we like to offer both. So you have all your staccatos, maccatos, staccatissimos, but you also have a variety of performance-based articulations like this one here. And you can also use time stretching. We've associated that to the mod wheel here using our rack time module. That's the vibrato, oh my god. One of the beautiful things about Soundpaint is that we are deeper in the DNA of the waveform. So right now, I'm really slowing this down in time, but you can hear there's barely any artifacts. It's truly what it would sound like. And to me, that is what Soundpaint is about. We now have orchestral instruments, and as you can see, you can play them completely naturally. But it's also interesting just to see, like, even from a sound designer's point of view, what happens when you explore deeper, wider, use all the racks and the effects and all that. With time, you can go all the way down to freeze. That's what was going on here. So these kind of fragments were like in the beginning just slower, slower, getting really slow now, and then freezing like that. It allows for a lot of sonic explorations, having that time control but without affecting pitch. Let me play you another da-da articulation. This one has a little more swing to it, da-da-da. And again, the notes are connected when the player plays them. So it's super cool and freeing to have both this version here and then all the traditional short notes. We have fast scoops. We have slow scoops. We have triplets. We have tuplets. We have like high school like legatos, pitchy at best. We have cascades, a rain of soprano saxophones just dropping down in like summer rain. To me, like, something about this sound here. Very soundtracky, and it has a lot more visceral character. Let me just take the filter off here for a second. Let's go a little bit deeper. I just sense a very sort of soundtracky kind of vibe to it. Let me add a little bit of like distortion to that. I think that's what it needs. What's going on is that I have time associated to my mod wheel here as well. In Soundpaint, if you ever want to associate anything to anything on your keyboard, for example, let's say I want to associate speed here to my mod wheel, you just right click here, say MIDI CC automation, move whatever controller it is. If it's the one up here, let's say I assign it to here now, I can control the time from this controller now. It's like a soprano mega horns almost. You hear how alive it is? Everything inside of Soundpaint, and especially with our H.A.L, our Hyper Acoustic Legato technology, really just comes to new life no matter what you do here. Mod wheel, 127 layers. I feel we are a little bit closer to that holy grail that we've been looking for so long, for decades in sampling. At least in terms of my sort of acoustic expectations, I feel I'm like somewhere between like an old school analog synthesizer and a real instrument. Sort of the best way to describe it. We also have a variety of short notes here. Let me just play them quickly for you. That's sort of old school sampling. You can also play them tighter with staccatismos if you want. Or Legatos. Cool. But they're a lot more fun to synthesize in my opinion. Or just good old tremolos. Maybe use a little bit of time stretching on them. And maybe take a little bit of shimmer and sprinkle it on top of it. So much acoustic beauty resides in the unknown. Who would have known that inside of this beautiful saxophone from 1999, that such a beautiful sonic soul would come alive one day inside of a technology like this. Thanks for watching.